Hey everybody, welcome to our first ever virtual event hosted by Carbon 6. We're gonna let a few people join. There's always like people kind of coming in a few minutes late, but I am about to launch a poll because one of the things that we want to know is how to provide like the most incredible content to you to help you scale your business, and also want to know more about who's here today so that we can answer your questions effectively. So I'm going to launch this poll. If you guys would jump in here, that would be amazing, just to let us know a little bit about you. And for those of you who just entered the webinar, my name is Erica Kraus. I lead brand at Carbon 6. Really excited to have you guys here today. We are thrilled to start offering consistent community events where we can really do our best to add the most value to where you are in your business. This specific webinar is going to be incredible. We've got some really fantastic and timely stuff that we're going to share with you guys. But I did launch a poll. These polls help us know how to serve this community better, and that's definitely our goal. So if you just jumped in and don't mind, filling out the poll for us, that would help, and it also gives everybody else a few more minutes to join. One of the things that I do want you to know is that there is a Q&A. There's a Q&A section at the bottom. I'm sure you guys are well familiar with that, but that is where we're going to be dropping questions. We are setting aside some time at the end, both for a live hack and for a question and answer. We're going to try to get through as many of your questions as possible. So as we get into the content, if there's something that you have a question about, drop it in there and we'll start queuing those up for Chelsea and Clayton towards the end. And if you just joined and you haven't had a chance to take the poll yet, please jump in really quick. That'd be huge for us. So while you guys are finishing the poll, we're Carbon 6. We're really passionate about radically helping businesses radically scale online. And we have an amazing set of tools that we're consistently optimizing. Your feedback is really, really valuable to that process. And we're also beginning to pull together webinars and blogs. And we just launched our blog a couple of weeks ago, and we're dropping content in there consistently, bringing in some of the greatest minds in Amazon right now to deliver awesome stuff for you guys. So stay tuned. This is the first of many. There's another one coming right on its heels, and we're really excited to be able to support you guys any way you can. So thanks to everybody who filled out the poll. I'm going to go ahead and end it, and I'll share out results at the end. Really excited to kick us off today. 3 silent Amazon profit killers. We're going to be sharing a step-by-step method to recover margins. We have with us Chelsea Cohen of So Stocked and Clayton Atchinson, one of our Carbon 6 community ambassadors. We all work together. We're on a team together, and we have spent a lot of time talking about how do we make this is awesome and jam-packed full of value for you. So I'm not going to keep talking. I'm actually going to leave the room and turn you over to our amazing hosts, Clayton and Chelsea.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We're really, really happy to have you on here. This is more topical. This actually gets more topical every single day. And we had something happen yesterday where Amazon announced a new fee that they're introducing. We'll talk a little bit about fees. We're going to be talking about Amazon fees and profit margins, and what are those things that maybe we're not keeping our eye on that we need to be watching, and figuring out how we can mitigate some of the expenses that have really started to drag on our profit margins. So we'll talk about that. We're going to have a step-by-step. And let me tell you a little bit about myself in case you do not know who I am. My name is Chelsea Cohen. I've been selling on Amazon since 2014. In 2018, started looking at specifically my profit inside of my business and felt like I wasn't keeping as much money as I wanted to. Profit margins were dwindling. What were those things that I could actually control? And inventory was one of the first things that I grabbed a hold of. So I've been really focused on inventory for the past 4 years. My passion lies not just in inventory, but also in profit and in restoring profit margins to businesses, to entrepreneurs. I've been speaking about supply chain and about inventory for just about as long, writing articles, podcasts, that type of thing. So love talking about that side of the business. And we're going to be going into some of that because it affects your profit significantly.
And yeah, I can introduce myself here. Thanks for kicking us off, Erica, and thanks for the intro, Chelsea. I'm Clayton Atchison, Community Ambassador at Carbon 6. I got about 10 years of e-commerce experience. I've been in private label since 2018. And yeah, really excited to talk about this topic because Chelsea is like the inventory expert when it comes to Amazon. I learned a lot from her. I've made a lot of mistakes when it comes to inventory. And so just excited to share with you and the guys in the community and total all the stuff that Chelsea and I have learned over the years. And before we jump in and start giving you all the details real quick, I just want to talk about why inventory is so important. I hear a lot that it's not the sexiest topic. Well, that's true. But if you get inventory right, it means more sales, more profit, less headaches, less stress, and more time back to work on the other parts of your business. So I think, generally speaking, everybody needs to take a step back and reevaluate what they think about when they think about inventory, because in the past year, a couple of years, we've been hit with COVID, manufacturing constraints, electric grid issues, California truckers going on strike, Suez Canal catching boats, like crazy stuff. It's like the world is playing a practical joke on us nonstop, and I want it to end. But the realist in me tells me it's not. So we need to be prepared. If you nail inventory, you can win in this game. If you don't, and you run out of stock, your ranking goes down, your profits go down. You have to fight tooth and nail to come back. On the other side, if you're overstocked, you're wasting money where you should be spending that in other places to launch new products or wherever else you could be spending it. So yes, inventory is not sexy on the surface, but it turns into money, and money is very sexy. So that's why this topic is so important. And that's why you guys should be trying to get as much information from Chelsea as possible. So that's enough. I'll get off my soapbox. Go ahead, Chelsea, and take it away.
Yeah, everything you said is exactly true, and revenue doesn't equal profit. And so finding a way to, with what you're already doing, claw back some of that profit that Amazon is trying to take, that our supply chain is trying to take. So we're going to go ahead and first and foremost, this talk is about profit killers, silent profit killers. So we're going to talk about 3 silent profit killers, things that are kind of flying under the radar, that are stealing your profit away and are doing it more and more every single year. Marketplace Pulse actually just released an article talking about how in the past 2 years, Amazon fulfillment fees have gone up by 30%. And so that is the first and foremost, one of the biggest impacts that has been made on businesses today, especially if you sell products that are lightweight but are large. Fulfillment fees have had a huge impact. We're going to talk about how exactly Amazon has completely shifted the structure of fulfillment fees and a couple of other fees a little later on. But that's first and foremost, one of those silent killers is fulfillment fees. Another one is overstocking. Overstocking leads to holding costs, so storage fees. And if you are overstocked and you actually have to remove that inventory, you're then paying removal fees. So overstocking can be very expensive, and it's something that we don't tend to pay attention to because we tend to focus on our best sellers and let those slow sellers kind of dwindle. But we're going to talk about how can you actually get ahead of the overstock and avoid those fulfillment fees, because every single month your products become less and less profitable. Then we have shipping and handling. Shipping and handling is something sometimes we feel like we can't control because we don't set what shipping rates are. We don't set what our warehouse is going to charge us, but there are ways to kind of claw back the profit even there. So we're going to talk about those 3 silent profit killers. And then when we're talking about profit, we can't not bring up the one profit killer that screams bloody murder, and that's stockouts. So we're going to talk a little bit about stockouts. We're all aware of it as a problem. but I'm going to give you some tips on how you can actually sort of avoid stockouts a bit more than maybe you are used to doing. The method that we're going to talk about, we promised a step-by-step method. And so I'm calling this method the CPR method, the cumulative profit recovery method. First of all, we're going to check your pulse. So that's basically, do you have your basics in? Are your inventory basics in that you're not running out of stock, you're not overstocking, you're ordering the right amount? Do you have the basics in place? And a lot of people, you'll be surprised to know, don't necessarily have them all in place or think they have them in place, but there are a couple of little tweaks that can make a real big difference. And we're going to talk about stopping the bleeding. How can we, with what we have now, how can we sort of mitigate some of those expenses that may be piling up in the background, like these overstock fees? And then lastly, we're going to teach you how to fight back, how to proactively reduce some of those fees. If you can't control what Amazon is going to be charging you, how can you reduce your fees regardless of what your freight forwarder charges you, regardless of what Amazon charges you? How can you get some of that money back? So let's talk first about checking your pulse. What are some of the basics of inventory that you need to have in place that some people may be kind of falling down on? First and foremost, you need to know what the stock out factors are. One of the things that I found in going into learning more about inventory management and going into looking at in 2018 some of the other tools that were out there, and the reason why I actually built So Stocked was because the stock out calculations were not accurate. It's important for you to understand whatever system you're using, whether you're using an Excel spreadsheet, you're using another software, you need to understand what the stock out calculations are and what your adjusted velocity needs to be. You need to know what your sales velocity is, and just because you're getting all your data from Amazon doesn't mean that it's being looked at in the right way. So the first thing to look at is, did you have stock? If you've got FBA, you know that you're not going to make sales if you don't have stock. So a lot of these tools and these algorithms are looking at whether you had stock or not. And that's the first thing that they're assessing, but that's as far as a lot of them go. The next thing that needs to be looked at is, was there an unusual interruption to your normal sales velocity? So that could be right before you stock out, you sell a lot less than you usually do, or Amazon finds a single unit and goes to try to sell that. That could be an unusual sales interruption. What if you end up getting suspended? You have stock, but it's not selling. That should be treated the same way that a stock out is treated. And a lot of these tools don't do that. A lot of these calculations don't do that. So it's very important that you're factoring all of these things into the equation. I want to talk quickly about how this actually computes into a real life example. This is a real life example of someone I was working with, and they were using a software that was basically treating their stock outs in this way. Let's say you're selling 100 units. Before you stock out, you sell 23 units, and then you stock out. And then Amazon finds 1 unit, sells that unit, then you come back in stock, you sell 13, and then you start selling more within that correct range. Those 3 days of significantly lower inventory sales history need to be treated as a stock out. Here is the difference in what happens when you don't do that. If you've got a sales velocity, you're looking at an average of 30 days. When you're not properly analyzing your stock outs and putting stock out calculations properly into your formula, you could be 10 units difference. And if you're ordering 3 months worth of inventory, that is a significant reduction in the amount of units that you should be placing. And this is why someone would stock out. So in this
Chelsea,
example,
I'll just jump in there real quick and say, this is exactly what happened to me. So I started off with a different software. Then I made my own. I have a background in finance. And so I thought I could make like a really good spreadsheet. But things like this are extremely helpful. And what is great about Stockout is exactly this. And it does the opposite if you have huge sales spikes too. And that's how I set it up for me. So it's not just, hey, if you sell one unit that came back in stock, that's not a real like in stock day. And then exactly like this, you mess up your forecasting. The opposite has happened where like a competitor went out of stock for 1 or 2 days and then was right back in. So I had this huge sales spike, but it threw my numbers off too. So unfortunately, I've made almost every mistake you can make when it comes to inventory. But this one is huge.
Yeah, and that goes into the calculation as well. The sales spikes portion of the calculation. We had a day where we were mentioned on a morning news segment about Christmas gifts one year, $40,000 in sales overnight. And if we had the next year just looked at the numbers, we would have ordered $40,000 in additional inventory that probably wouldn't have been moved. So you have to factor these things out in order to get the right number. And we call it daily adjusted velocity. And you can think of it simply as true velocity. It's what your actual velocity is when you take all of the outliers out.
Exactly. Yep.
I wanted to also talk a little bit about reorder points. Since we're on the subject of stockouts, one of the ways that people tend to stock out is that they don't place their orders at the right time. So it's important to know what the calculation is for your reorder point. And it's actually pretty easy. The calculation for reorder point is to take your lead time and add it to your buffer stock, and that will give you your reorder point. So if you have a
I know what buffer stock is of course, but for anybody out there that's watching that says, what is buffer stock? Like, what is it and why is it important?
Sure. Buffer stock is essentially a false zero. So it's like you're not ordering when you run out. Buffer stock is kind of like the gas that's left in your tank when your empty light comes on. You still have enough to get to the gas station and fill up. That's what buffer stock is. That extra inventory that's sitting there so that if anything goes wrong, you have a bit of buffer or a bit of, it's also called safety stock. You have a bit of buffer to be able to get you through while you sort out that inventory emergency.
Good deal. Unless there's like something crazy like COVID going on.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
In that case, you would want to do longer buffer stocks. And I often recommend having buffer stock at FBA and at your 3PL.
That's what I do. That's helpful.
Yes. Yeah. It's important, especially if you have lower ability to send inventory and like restock limits. That's not very common nowadays, but some people do still have those restrictions. Another recommendation would be like rule of thumb, 45 days minimum inventory, because there's something called geo ranking. And I'm not sure if you've heard of geo ranking, Clayton, or not.
I've heard about it recently. I didn't know what it was. So just to recap this daily adjusted velocity will take big spikes and like low days where you're out of sale, tell you how much you're going to be spending per day. Then you need to figure out your buffer stock, and that'll help you figure out your reorder point. Now the geo tracking adds like another layer of complication. I think it is like based on where your inventory is in the USA. Like maybe if you're in Georgia and you have a lot of inventory in Georgia, it'll show up as like prime and like can ship quickly. Whereas if you have no inventory in California and somebody orders from California, it might not be prime, or at least takes longer. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. It'll take longer. You want a proper dispersal of inventory throughout the country. It'll take longer in the areas where you don't have as much inventory. And Amazon will actually start moving you down the ranking in those areas specifically. So if you've got enough inventory where you're at, you'll search your product and you won't be able to see that. But in other states, when they search your product because of that geolocation, the listing will be lower. Your ads won't be showing in that area because Amazon doesn't want people to actually order your product there because they can't get it in that 2-day delivery window. So that's something that is to keep in mind. And that's why having a minimum of 45 days worth of inventory. And I do recommend days, not units, because that'll fluctuate based on your sales velocity. But having a minimum of 45 days worth of inventory helps you to avoid geo-ranking issues.
Makes sense. That has happened to me. Like my mom always checks on my products for some weird
Yeah.
reason. And she's like, I see you're number 2 today. And then like one day
Oh,
she
that's
was like,
cute.
you're number like 20. I was like, what? And I guess it was because of that, because where I was at,
Yeah.
it was fine. So
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
should check on that, right? Like you should have people check from different zip codes. And again,
Yes.
just have enough inventory and it's less likely to happen. But that's a really good point.
Yeah. Yes. If you can change your zip code, it'll show the zip code sometimes in the upper left corner of where you're searching, and then you'll be able to see what people in that zip code are looking at. The next one we want to get into is stop the bleeding. This is a process whereby you take a look at what you're currently doing and you find ways to reduce some of those fees. So, for example, you are stocking out a lot, or you're paying a lot in your holding costs, storage fees and that type of thing. I have put together something called inventory minded marketing. It's essentially a strategy that sellers are using to be able to coordinate their inventory team and their marketing team. Because one of the most common problems that I noticed when coming into the inventory space was that marketing was not communicating with inventory, and they were marketing themselves into a stock out. Inventory minded marketing helps you to avoid that. So first and foremost, the marketing team provides a marketing plan to the inventory team. There is a template for this at sostock.com/tools to be able to help to create that plan. It lays out all of the details that need to go to the inventory team. So the inventory team can make sure that you're not going to stock out on a product by doing that campaign. They actually look at and compare the inventory to the marketing plan, and will give you the thumbs up or tell you, avoid promoting that ASIN until we get back in stock. Next up, we have the reports that the inventory team provides to the marketing team. The inventory team tended in the past to take a reactive role. And so this is a way of making inventory more responsible and more proactive by providing reports that give data to marketing so that marketing can actually add planning for inventory into the marketing to not just increase sales and avoid stockouts, but also proactively decrease the holding costs and the removal costs that are associated with having slow sellers and liquidation products and that type of thing. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, like, we're talking about, I'm an Amazon seller. I have been for about 4 years, and I do have a few VAs and a few people, but mostly it's still me running it. So
Yep.
if you're hearing this and you're saying the marketing team and the inventory team, if you're out there and you're an individual seller, that's the same team. So
Yes.
there's really something bigger about this to say, hey, it's very important to think about inventory and marketing together. You
Yes.
can't think about one without thinking about the other. It's extremely easy to get excited about a lightning deal or Black Friday. But if you are doing lightning deals, if you are doing these marketing pushes, you also need to think about inventory. And this was a big mind shift for me, and it's helped a lot.
Yes.
And I think you coined this phrase, actually. Like, I never heard of it until I heard
Yes.
of you. You like invented this, which is great.
I did. Yeah. I created the phrase to get into people's minds. First of all, curiosity, what is that? And second of all, when you tie marketing into inventory, people get a lot more interested because we're very marketing heavy. And so it was important to drive that point home to all sellers, because we're not just talking about beginning sellers. We're talking about, I've seen 8-figure sellers market themselves into a stock out. I've talked to PPC agencies, and every single one of them has marketed their clients into a stock out. So the fact that this was a common problem, this was the #1 problem that I recognized before restock limits came about. was the number one reason that people stocked out, was because they marketed themselves into a stock out because they didn't plan properly.
So if you've done it, don't feel bad. Aggregators are doing it. Agencies are doing it. Everybody's
Yep.
doing it. But more and more people are adopting this practice and they're getting better at it.
Mhm.
And if you want to be successful, you need to get better at it too. So very important point.
Exactly. So let's talk quickly through these different reports. They are pretty much what they sound, but the importance is to understand how to actually use the reports. First up is the Stockout risk report. This is a report that you will use to be able to predict products that may be at risk of stocking out. It will look into the future. Remember, we talked about the reorder point. So you can look at the amount of inventory you have available and how quickly you're selling. What is that daily adjusted velocity? And divide the daily adjusted velocity into the amount of inventory you have to see how many days out you have before you're going to run out of stock. So that's going to give you your reorder point. And remember, you want to factor your buffer stock into that. But you'll see if something comes onto this list, this report, that's at risk of stocking out. And so you'll want to know what's the date of stock out, and then how many days it'll be stocked out before you get inventory back in. Once you have that data, you take the stock out risk report, send it to your marketing team, and your marketing team will see if they can avoid that stock out. They might turn off ads, or not necessarily turn off ads, but maybe turn off the more unprofitable ads, turn off the more aggressive ads. They may slowly increase the price. Of course, you want to look and make sure that this is not affecting your ranking. But if you can avoid a stock out and make more money by reducing your ad spend or turning off that coupon or whatever it is, if you can make more money and avoid a stock out, I don't see why you wouldn't want to do that every single day. So that's the stock out risk report. Then you have the slow sellers report. The slow sellers report is, I call it the move it or lose it report. It's that borderline. They're not quite duds, but they are not successful products. You pick a range between, let's say, for example, for your business, it's between 5 and 20 units a day. And you say, this is a product that's at risk of becoming a real dud and really dragging down. And I've got, every single month, I'm wasting money on storage fees because it's a slow seller. The thing that you do with this report, marketing team actually will use this report to devise a plan to move that inventory and try to move it out the top of the list. So it's now out of that maximum range and into a viable range so that you can make more money, increase your turnover, and reduce those holding costs long-term. After the slow sellers report, if you can't move that product out the top of that list and it ends up going out the bottom of the list, you get into a liquidation report. This is something where you set only a minimum. The minimum will basically say, let's say anything under 5 units a day. We got to get rid of it. It's going to cost us money. So let's put it on this liquidation report. We'll create a flash sale. We'll do a price drop. We'll do a coupon code. We'll push it out to our email list. We'll bundle it with another product to help to move it. And if all else fails, you have to then bite the bullet and potentially do a removal order. That gets expensive. So you want to try to move it any other way you possibly can before going to that extreme.
And
So
real quick, just to jump in, as I'm reading all these reports, if anybody's watching, these are all like, this makes me think I have to do a book report or do something. These are automatic. Like they live inside SoStock. You click a button and you download it and you can send it. Like this is done for you, which is incredible. But I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And you can customize it. And that's what's really important, is that I fully believe in things being actionable, and I don't like, theories without some way to actually implement. So these are ways that you can actually take these concepts of, this very kumbaya idea of marketing and inventory working together, but what does that actually mean? This is what it means concretely. Oops. Lastly, we have the overstock report. The overstock report will often include a lot of things from the slow sellers report, a lot of products from the liquidation report, but it could also include your best sellers. And the way to look at this report is that these are possibly liabilities. They are costing you money every single month. So if you have over 90 days, that would be a good idea. Like if I have over 90 days of stock, I want to put this on the overstock report and look at it. If I have 200 days of stock, every single month I'm going to be losing money because every single month I'm paying storage fees. So products are less and less profitable as the months go on. If I can move that product more quickly, I can make more money. And starting to look at the fact that you're going to lose money over time, that creates a sort of a liability, shifting it over into being an asset, in that if you have all this stock and you want to increase your ranking in certain keywords, you can use that stock and sort of buy that ranking by doing targeted promotions. So the marketing team should see that and be excited about the fact that they've got this overstock. They can really drive sales on specific targeted keywords using that as an asset. The most exciting thing, I think, for a marketer to see is that they've got something on the slow sellers report, and they know that they have to increase that in the ranking and get it up out the top of that report. And they also have a bunch of stock for that SKU. And so it's on both of those reports. They know that they're off to the races, and they can move that inventory and use that as an asset to remove that from the slow sellers report.
Yeah. And if you don't, you're paying for, ever increasing storage costs, right? So like,
Yes.
get it out of there if you got too much of it.
Yes,
All right,
exactly.
awesome.
Yeah. All right, then we're going to go into this last section. This last section is about fighting back. If we can't control what Amazon's going to do with their fees, and believe me, they've been doing a lot with their fees. I just posted something about a new fee that they announced yesterday. They have been announcing fees. I call it the Amazon fee stack. 2022, they've just been really barraging us with a lot of fees. And like I mentioned, it's been reported that fulfillment fees have increased by 30% since 2020. They introduced what's called dimensional weight fees, and we'll get into what dimensional weight fees are and how that works. They also introduced a 5% fuel and inflation surcharge on top of your fulfillment fees. They introduced dimensional weight to a couple of different things, to your removal fees, to your remote fulfillment fees, if you're sending inventory from the US to Canada or Mexico. They also created something called the aged inventory fee. So you have, at 12 months, you have long-term storage. At 9 months now, you have a different fee that's called aged inventory. And then lastly, just in time for the holidays, you get the holiday peak fulfillment fee, which is an additional average of 35 cents per unit between October 15th and January 14th. So now you have fulfillment fees with dimensional weight. You have on top of that is the 5% surcharge, and then another 35 cents. So those are a bunch of fulfillment fees just for selling your product. You can't get around that. But there is a way to help to maybe reduce that. So we're going to talk about that.
And I think this is the answer, right? Long story short, fees are crazy. They keep getting crazier, and inventory cannot be sexy, but this is how you save money. This is how you make sure that your business is profitable so you can launch more products. This is what the experts in the field are doing. They are thinking about dimensional weight and saving money on every single part of the supply chain.
Yes.
Show them how, Chelsea.
Yes. Yeah, I call it profit optimization across the supply chain. It's what smart sellers are doing. We've been talking for years about scaling and want to scale. And yet that conversation did not involve inventory. It did not involve profit optimization in specific areas. It involved launching new products and marketing, which are extremely important. It also involved fintech coming in and borrowing money to continue to launch products. But what about borrowing money from yourself by optimizing your profit? You can actually recover the capital so that you maybe don't have to borrow as much money from, these funding companies. You can help to offset that and scale faster by recovering a lot more cash flow and a lot more capital. So let's talk about dimensional weight. This is a dirty word. And I wanted to explain a little bit about what does that actually mean? What is dimensional weight? Why does it exist? It's actually existed for a long time. UPS uses this, FedEx uses this. All of the major carriers for ground shipping use dimensional weight. And it's because what it is it's looking at the space and the weight and doing a calculation to combine those into what's called a shipping weight. It's different than the actual weight. And it's because if you have only so much space that you can fit into a trailer, the trailer is only so big, it can only have so much weight inside of that trailer. You need to be able to offset any differences that you might have. If you have to stuff it through pillows and you're only charging for weight, then that person who has these huge pillows is going to pay a lot less than someone who is selling, small barbells or something like that, or bricks of gold. I don't know why you sell bricks of gold, but you get the idea. So dimensional weight is a simple calculation. You look at your unit length, unit width, and unit height, and multiply those together. And you divide it by what is called a dim divisor or dimensional divisor. And the common one that is used in the industry is 139. Not necessarily any significance to that number, but that's just the most common standard number. And that's what Amazon is using as well. We're going to talk about how this actually affects you, especially if you've got a lightweight, large product. You need to be able to factor this in. If you're thinking of launching a lightweight, large product, you need to know that you're going to be paying a lot more. You're going to have to use dimensional weight. And we actually have an FBA calculator at sostock.com/tools that adds dimensional weight to the calculation. So here's a real world example of how this works. You've got two different pillow products. One of them is a large standard size. Most likely this is being vacuum sealed. Shipping weight 3 pounds, dimensional weight 12 pounds, because you're doing that calculation. Now you've got small oversized. Shipping weight 6 pounds, dimensional weight 21 pounds. So the actual weight versus the weight that you're going to be charged. That is a significant difference. You start thinking, if I've got a pillow, how can I condense it? If I've got any one of my products, how can I get it to fit into a smaller package? That is the first step towards recovering your profit margin when it comes to your supply chain. If you can reduce the size of your package, if you can get into a lower size tier, you can start saving some money. If you've got, for this example, you've got some face cream and you can get into a smaller container, you should do that. A friend of mine, Travis, he has a product that is sunglasses. He had a hard case and he reduced it to a soft sleeve and was able to get significant reductions in storage fees and fulfillment fees. But beyond just the reduction in the fulfillment fees and the storage fees, because that's the first thing that isn't impacted. And we see that we've got 5%, we've got all of these fees, the additional fees on top of your fulfillment fees. That 5% surcharge is related to your fulfillment fees. So you reduce that fulfillment fee and you reduce that surcharge. So all of these fees start to have a ripple effect. And then beyond just your fulfillment fees, you start looking at the fact that you can fit more units into a carton. You can fit more units onto a pallet. So even if you can't, there's something to be said about carton optimization, about pallet optimization. Even if you have your product completely optimized and you can't reduce that product any further, you can start looking at whether you're maximizing your potential in terms of your cartons and your pallets. And I don't know.
This was a big deal for me, actually. And I think about this now every time I order a package. Like, I'm a nerd, so I was doing some Legos. I would like to say it was with my nephew or something, but it wasn't. It was just me. And I got the box and it was slam packed with like Legos. There was no extra space and air, not like when you get a bag of chips and it's like half chips.
Yeah.
And I was thinking these people have optimized, like Legos figured it out, right?
Yeah.
And I was watching a thing with you a while ago where you said, hey, you have 48 inches on a pallet, right? So if you have
Mhm.
boxes that are 25 inches, you can't put 2 of them on there. But if you
Yeah.
can shrink that to 24 inches, you can get 2. And I don't know why I
Mhm.
just never paid attention to cartons and pallet optimization. But after I learned from you, I started doing that and it saved me thousands of dollars. It's a big
Yes.
deal. Like this
Yeah.
stuff is, you change a little bit of packaging and then you change the carton size. And next thing
Yeah.
you know, like you've just cut thousands of dollars off your costs. Like,
Yes.
it works,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. It can be huge. It can be a huge amount of savings. And so I started thinking about what's the best way to figure out that calculation? How can you know that you've got the best, the most optimized? And came up with the idea that, if you've got your unit dimensions and you've got your pallet dimensions, if you take those two and you work it backwards, you can figure out the perfect carton dimensions. However, that's a lot of math. And so, of course, me being crazy, I started putting that math together and I said, okay, well, what if we did 3 and what if we did 2 and what if we did 5? How much can we fit? And put all of those different equations together, and it's hundreds of equations. We actually made a free tool, SoStock.com/tool. Our carton pallet calculator helps you to figure this out, and it will look at your carton dimensions or your pallet dimensions and your unit dimensions. It will look at what you're currently doing and then what you should be doing, and show you not just a pack list of how you should start packing your stuff, the carton size, the pallet configuration, but it'll also show you your savings. And so you can start to, even before you go to your supplier, you can have an idea of the impact. So if you're going to go through all the trouble of getting your supplier to change what they're doing, you want to know that it's actually going to be worth something.
In most of my cases, it was, and I've recommended this tool, like a few of these tools, to other people, and they call me back later and they're like, thank you so much, Clayton. And I'm thinking like, I didn't build it. I didn't make it, but I just say, yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
Yeah. Awesome.
So they're great tools.
Yeah, it can have a significant impact. And here's an example, and this is an extreme example, but it's a real example. Someone plugged the numbers in, and we actually found that he had saved 93 cents per unit, which, even if you're saving 10 cents per unit, if you do that across your entire catalog over a month, a year, it can have a significant impact. And so this person, for a 2,000 unit order, is saving almost $2,000. So he's saving almost $1 per unit, and it can have a huge impact on his business, especially as you're trying to scale up and you're trying to get started. Anywhere throughout your business, but really when you're trying to get things going, you need as much money as you can get.
You sell 100 units a day, $1 savings, that's $36,000 more a year. And
Yep, exactly. So I know we're running short on time. I have a couple of different slides. I want to just kind of wrap this all up in a little bow. Understand that once you shrink all this stuff down and you optimize this, if you're shipping in a container and you have to pay $10,000 per container, you want to get as many units in that container as possible, because the more units you get in there, the less per unit it's going to cost you. It just trickles down into being dispersed across more units. There's a free tool. It's not our free tool. It's a free tool that is available online. It's called peertopeer.com/loadcalc, and it helps you to optimize your containers. The other thing to do is to send that optimized, it's called a container map. Send that container map not just to your freight forwarder, but also to your third-party warehouse, so that they know how it's built out and they can unload it. You can actually start saving some labor costs. There's labor costs. People have cut down half of their labor costs on the container unloading process just by having a container map. And again, it's free. So let's really quickly kind of wrap this all up into showing you the significance of the trickle-down effect. We've got our 2 products. One of them is more optimized than the other one. And as we go through and we look at the cartons, the pallets, the containers, all of those costs associated, we're not even talking about how much you're paying your supplier, how much you're paying for sponsored ads, just to get it there, just to get your product shipped over. And then, of course, the fulfillment fees. We're looking at, it's almost twice as much on every single level, so that you all in are paying over $14 in fees on one side, which is still significant, right? And then $26 on the other side. The difference is over $11, almost $12 per unit in cost difference. This one on the right is essentially can't afford to be in business unless he changes something. This product is going to be dead in the water for him. And that's because of Amazon's dimensional weight fees, and then how everything kind of trickles down throughout the supply chain. When you look at what saving almost $12 can do, this guy was doing 1,200 units a month. The savings would be $25,000, $300,000 per year. And then if he were, let's say, to get a 5x multiple, that's $1.5 million on one product.
That's if he sold his business at a 5x multiple.
Yes,
right?
if he sold his business, if he exited his business. And this is what smart aggregators are doing. I know aggregators, I've talked to them, and this is what they're doing. When they buy your company, they go and they turn around and they do these things, and they put instant equity back in their pocket that they didn't have to pay you, because 12 to 18 months before you sold, you didn't do this. So that's why I'm extremely passionate about telling people about this and telling them to get started as soon as possible, because you have all of that money that goes back into your business to scale and grow. And then you have the money on exit of the profit that you added back to your business. So let's just kind of recap. We talked about, in terms of the CPR method, the cumulative profit recovery method. And we say it's cumulative because we can see how all across the line it starts to compound. And we're not even talking about the opportunity cost of the money that you're saving. For every dollar that you save, if you can turn that dollar into $2, $3, $4 when you launch a new product, that's where it starts to become a conversation of scaling. So we talk about check your pulse, make sure that the basics are in, that you know that your velocity calculation is correct, that you know how to calculate your reorder point. All of those basics are important. Then we stop the bleeding with inventory-minded marketing, where we're being more proactive about moving that inventory that needs to move. And we're avoiding stockouts by not, kicking ourselves, not forcing ourselves into stockouts. And then lastly, fighting back. If we can't afford, or if we can't control what Amazon and our freight forwarders are charging us, we can at least reduce that by simply being smarter with how we reduce our packaging, whether it's folding silicone, whether it's vacuum sealing, whether it's getting a smaller container, finding ways to reduce it from the packaging side, optimizing through your entire supply chain, and really changing the economics of your entire business across your entire catalog.
Awesome.
All right.
Guys, I know we want to get to Q&A. I do have a hack for you. I can probably do it in like 45 seconds, and then we're going to jump right into Q&A because I already see some coming through. So this is something I cannot believe more people are not doing. And I've been doing this for a while. Basically, the hack is to use AMZ Alert. It is the only alert software, to my knowledge, that all you need to do in order to get alerts on a product is have the ASIN and the merchant ID. Every other alert system, you have to connect to your Amazon Seller Central, which means you can't really spy on your competition. This is getting alerts on your competition. So all you do is get the ASIN of the competitive product, as well as the merchant ID, which is very easy. You go to the product that they're selling, click on their store, go to the URL and copy it. And then you put the ASIN and the merchant ID into AMZ Alert. And with AMZ Alert, if we go to the next slide, it will send you alerts whenever you run out of stock, or whenever they run out of stock. So you set the absolute threshold to 20 or 10 or however much you want to know when they're about to run out of stock. So if it goes beneath 1, you get an alert. what do you do when they run out of stock? I wish my competition was out of stock all the time. That obviously doesn't happen, but I hate running out of stock. Love when my competitor does it. So for just $1 per ASIN per month, you can get alerts about when they're out of stock, and then you can have an attack plan on how to rank up, get more reviews, do a lot more stuff when your competitor isn't able to compete. So that's the hack. I hope that helps you guys. Let's jump into the Q&A.
Awesome. Awesome. We got one quick slide and we're going to get into Q&A. If you have interest in SoStock or questions about SoStock, we have a special offer after the Q&A. We don't make this offer. So this is a special offer for you guys on the webinar. But a little bit more about SoStock, the reports that you saw and the algorithm that you saw, and a lot more other features, seasonality and PO generation and tracking. All of these things are in SoStock. I built it for sellers. We worked with hundreds of sellers over 2 years, directly with sellers. I talked to hundreds of sellers and got feedback. So it's basically what the community wanted to build because there wasn't something out there. We have a ton of happy customers. We have free data migration. So if you're on a spreadsheet or another software and you want to move over, we can help you, especially because I know your time is short and you don't have a lot of time to do data entry. We can help with that. And then we do one-on-one onboarding. So if you have any questions, you can jump on a call with one of our product specialists who can also coach you in terms of how to build it out specifically for your business. We have a DIY onboarding walkthrough as well, but you can really find a lot more success when you're talking to someone who's spent years talking to sellers about their inventory, and you can borrow their knowledge as well. All right, let's talk about the Q&A. And yeah, I guess we maybe have some questions.
Yeah, so guys, there's a few awesome questions in here for you. Jumping back in the answer, help you guys get to all of them. One came from Randall. One big challenge with any inventory management system is that it's forward facing based on historical data. When you're just starting out, there's huge variance in import timing, Amazon receiving timelines, other sellers selling below map and control listing, etc. Do you have any thoughts about this?
So a couple of things. If you can predict or have an idea of what you're going to sell, you can build out that launch map. So for example, if you know that if I'm going to start selling this and I've got other people who are selling on the listing, there are about 3 people, this is, I assume, sounds like a wholesale question. There are 3 other people selling on the listing. I say my market share at the correct pricing is 6 units a day. You can build that out into the calculation. You can plug in a manual number and you can put, okay, 6 units a day. And then what is my reorder time? What is my lead time? All of those things go into SoStock to be able to build out a launch pattern that you specifically set as a.
And I would say 2 things. Number one, if you're just starting out, try to educate yourself, get as much information as possible. Sorry, I was getting a phone call and it messed my computer up. So 2 things. Number one, educate yourself as much as possible. Go to SoStock, read on their blog. There's a place where you can search tons of different articles and questions that have been asked before. Talk to anybody else in the industry that can help you. And then also there is onboarding. Like I've done the entire SoStock onboarding, and then there's one-on-one help. So people at SoStock can help you with questions like that. Hey, I'm just starting out. How do I build this forecast? How do I build this this map? So that's number one. And then yeah, I forget my number 2, to be honest. But just educate yourself as much as possible and leverage the people around you.
Awesome. So Mark kind of talked about something he's gone through recently. Through a mistake in ordering, we ended up with way too much inventory in our 3PL for a couple of ASINs, like 3 years worth at current sales rate. I'm not sure what to do. I'm paying monthly to store, but I don't know what other options I have. And I know a lot of people want to know how SoStock accounts for 3PL and forecasting. Do you have any advice for like what to do after the fact or how to forecast better in the future?
I mean, after the fact that gets into marketing, talked about doing flash sales. Amazon has something called outlet deals. Outlet deals, you can see if you qualify for an outlet deal. Amazon likes to do it when you've got overstock. So that's in your inventory dashboard. You'll see if there is an offer for outlet deals for specific products. Lightning deals are another one. We talked about bundling those, those products with your best sellers so that you can start to get a little bit of lift. And so that those would be some pieces of advice. If it does come down to liquidating, if you don't have to pay, I would say don't send too much inventory into Amazon. It sounds like he has inventory in his 3PL. So you automatically don't have to pay those removal fees. There are companies that can help to liquidate where they will sell it on other marketplaces and pay you. Usually it's like 50% they'll take and 50% you'll take, and you might be able to recover some of that profit so that you're not spending on storage fees for 3 years. And so those resources at back-track.com is one of them. Another one is returnsworldwide.com. And then another one I've heard of, and these you should vet out. Some of them become recommended from others in the community, but definitely vet them out and find out if they will work with you instead of sending, 10,000 units. Start with, say, a small bit of units of inventory to test them.
And the thing that I would add there is I would have more questions for you. I keep reading it as Mark. Mark. I would have more questions about why the, how you did your forecasting. Obviously, you want to try to improve that in the future. And I think our tools can definitely help you with that. But I have in the past gotten a listing basically suspended and then taken down for EPA claims. And I did do a relaunch completely. So if you think that you're past your honeymoon period and that you have a good product and maybe it's just some like factors outside of your control, like you ran out of stock for a long time and then all this stock came in, I've done that too. There might be an opportunity here if you have 3 years worth of inventory to consider doing a relaunch, which means, putting on new barcodes, new ASINs, everything. But I have done it successfully and there's lots of information online about how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, in terms of the forecasting question, because that was another piece to that, I would look at, was there some sort of sales spike in your data that threw things off? Because that seems to be a sign of that. Would be last year you had some huge sales because you did, something with an influencer or something like that. And this year you're not doing that. And then, could you recreate that to move that inventory?
Awesome stuff, guys. One last question that I know we're going to get to, because this has come up a couple times, is seasonality. So can you load knowledge of season starts and ends and all the elements of seasonality into SoStocked? And how does SoStocked account for seasonality in general for these sellers who kind of rely on certain seasons for their products?
Sure. So seasonality, there are two ways. We have the original way that we put it together, which was you can look at last year's sales and we pull last year's sales data. And it's essentially just a model of what you did last year. So that's one piece. You can add trends on top of that. And then you could also, let's say, add a percentage, pick a date range, add a percentage. Those are the basic seasonality tools that we have. But we have added a few months ago a tool that is an automated seasonality tool. And what it does is it takes the pattern of sales for the last year and it adds the trend on top of that. So that if you were selling and you had a trend like this or whatever it was, it'll take that pattern. But let's say you're selling 20% more than you did last year. It'll bump it up to that 20%. And then you can adjust that. So if you say, okay, last year we did this, but we're going to do 10% more than that, you can on the fly adjust by, per month or per week to really create a dynamic forecast.
Yeah, I would say just generally speaking, SoStock is set up in a way that's easy to use. And there's a lot of tools that are automated, like Chelsea said. but it's also extremely customizable. You can put negative growth rates on there. If you know that competitors are entering the market and the past trailing 3 months is not going to be the same as the future 3 months, like any way you can imagine where you could customize something, they've built it out in SoStock. Extremely useful. Seasonality is definitely taken care of as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome. You guys, thank you so much. Both of you, Chelsea, awesome content. Clayton, thank you so much for being here and helping us deliver all these insights. We have so many more things coming your way. We have a webinar fast following this. It'll be focused around maximizing your PPC efforts in Q4. That will be on August 31st. So we'll be sending out info for that. And we're just grateful you guys showed up. Want to keep building from a community perspective. Want your feedback. Thanks for participating in the poll. Let us know how you enjoyed this webinar as well. And for those of you whose questions we did not get to, know we're happy to answer them. So if you want to go to sostock.com, ping us. We'll also try to filter through and make sure all your questions got answered, but we're really appreciative that you showed up. And take advantage, guys. If you're not already on SoStock, take advantage of the 60-day trial.
We haven't even given the special offer.
Oh, we didn't?
No, yeah, we have to go to the special offer.
Okay, yeah. We are over, but we're gonna give you our special offer, which I just gave away, which is a 60-day trial. But this is rare. I've been following Chelsea for over a year, and this has not been done. So we're getting you guys as prepped as possible for Q4, and know that for a lot of you, it takes kind of getting into the tool to really like understand the full value of it. Chelsea dropped like all these various like tools and resources and spreadsheets. And some of you were saying, hey, I'd really love to see those. Well, you can, and the team's even happy to help you get those set up and optimize towards you and your actual store. So Chelsea, you want to share any other details?
Yeah, so special offer, first and foremost, SoStock, we take our customers very seriously. I'm a seller. I'm in the seller community, been in the seller community for 8 years. And you can check us out on the Amazon App Store. And so here's just, some of the things people are saying: getting rid of spreadsheets, accurate forecasting, saving money and saving time. Those are some of the top things that we really push in terms of why we built the tool. And then we have fantastic customer service and feedback. We have a process for collecting your feedback so that we can continue to improve. I will be going into launching profit and cash flow tools starting in the fourth quarter. So like I said, I'm extremely excited about that side of the business, and we're here to support that. And so when you sign up for SoStock, you can not only get control of your inventory, but look forward to the profit and cash flow tools that they're going to be built out in a level that doesn't exist currently inside of the industry. So super excited about that. Go to sostock.com/60. We're doing a limited time 60-day free trial. This trial page is going to be pulled down pretty quickly. So go ahead and sign up. Like Erica said, we don't do free trials. Actually, the first free trials we ever did started last October last year. So for the first 3.5 years of SoStock, we didn't do a free trial. So 60-day free trial will give you a lot of time to really dig into the tool and understand it, and see if it's something that will work for you. And again, we love to help and figure out how to streamline your systems, work inventory-minded marketing into your processes, and help you to make and save a lot more money.
All righty. Well, we appreciate you guys showing up. Thanks again, Clayton and Chelsea. And we dropped all the links in here, and we'll also be following up. A couple of you asked if there'd be a recording. Yes, there will. And we'll push it out in our follow-up email, as well as a few of these links to keep you guys moving down the road and saving some of these amazing profits. So have an awesome rest of your week. We can't wait to see you at the next one. Talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.